You're listening to a podcast from thespoilist.com. Welcome to First Contact, a podcast where we go through every episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, one by one, until we lose the will to live. I'm Andrew.
I'm James.
And I'm Alex.
This week we watched Transfigurations. It was written by Renny Echevarria, directed by Tom Benko, and it first aired the week of June the 4th, 1990. James, what does happen in this one?
The Enterprise is exploring an uncharted system. They're actually exploring, guys! When they find a lone survivor of an escape pod crash. Dr. Crusher stabilizes him by hooking him up to Geordi's brain and moving him to the Enterprise. The patient, which they call John Doe, heals remarkably quickly, going from near death to up and walking, even displaying healing powers, while the Enterprise scans some stars or something. However, he has no memory of his past life. Using a module found on board the pod, Geordi and Data discover John's planet of origin, but as his people approach, John becomes panicked and tries to escape. The Zolkonians seem to be space Nazis, and accuse John of being a disruptive influence on their society. Turns out, John is the next evolutionary mutation of his race, who turns into a star child or something, and sets off to help his race achieve enlightenment on the new plane of existence.
Wow. Alex, you've never seen this episode before. Did you enjoy it?
Well, that's true. I hadn't seen this episode before yesterday. I sat down to watch it yesterday to really absorb it. I then also watched it again half an hour before this recording because I hadn't absorbed it. I mean, what do you want me to say? The makeup was good?
There's nothing much to absorb here.
I think this episode is perfectly competent. I think its big problem is that it's a bit simplistic, and it also does not have any kind of subtext to it. It doesn't have any ideas behind it. The story is exactly what it appears to be, which is injured man develops superpowers.
I feel like I've been on a 7-hour drive, passing intermittently service stations of interest, where I'll look and go, oh look, that might be nice to stop off at. Oh no, never mind, we'll wait until the next one in 27 miles and we won't stop again.
It does feel very long.
Well, to give you a sense of that, I sat down watching this episode and the previous one, because we did two at once, and I was watching through this one. My wife left the room. My wife then came back about 20 minutes later and said, how many episodes are you watching this evening? You're doing more than 2? It had just progressed by 20 minutes. It felt that long.
I'm not quite sure why, because nothing happens, does it? The Enterprise goes exploring, they find an escape pod, they bring a man on board, he spends some time in sickbay, and he gets better. And then, right at the end, his people turn up and say, he's a heretic, burn him. And then he goes, dude, no, I'm something else. I remember now. It's handy. And that's kind of it. It's very little drama, I feel, in this.
I've been rather unwell, you see. I've been terribly ill there, but I'm just starting to walk again. I'm just starting to walk again, and but I must be going. And did I mention I'm a star child? End.
It's an episode built around your guest character, who I think puts in a nice performance. That whole thing, say, oh, he is charming. Everybody loves John. He's fine. He seems perfectly nice. He doesn't give off a great deal of charisma, but you know, he's a likeably written character as far as he goes, which isn't very far.
Why does this program give all of its star children such inherently dull names? Ian and John. I mean, yeah, everyone goes on about how charismatic he is. Not dissimilar to the episode of Toast of London, where everyone is beholden to how charismatic John Hamm is. I thought he was fine. I didn't think he was charisma incarnate.
You've got to remember he's on board the Enterprise.
Fair point.
I think we're glossing over the best section of the episode, which is the first few scenes with Geordi and Worf.
Oh, undoubtedly, these are the finest parts of the episode. Michael Dorn is a tour de force here, with very little to do, but yeah, this is outstanding.
You must let her see the fire in your eyes.
Now, I wrote this down. He's saying this to Geordi LaForge, a blind man whose eyes are not visible to anyone.
There was a look on LaForge's face that acknowledged that line.
I love like how useless Geordi is with women. That you know, he's almost a bit rude because he's so shy. I don't know who this person on 10 Forward is. They're not in Starfleet. I don't know what they do. But they come and they talk to Geordi, and Geordi says, "It's fine, everything's fine in engineering. Please leave me alone and don't talk to me."
Yeah, well, you see, what you don't understand is that relationships are so easy in the future and there's no conflict, and this stuff doesn't happen in the future except when it does.
He's only comfortable around people in the holodeck. He's the equivalent of a guy today whose entire relationship is in the game Second Life.
Or one of those people who falls in love with Siri.
That's a thing. I mean, it wouldn't surprise.
Or Reg Barkley.
I feel they only write Geordi this way when they want to. I feel he is quite a confident guy, but maybe that's shown in that other scene. I don't really get Geordi and Worf hanging out, but I like it.
And we see Worf cringe. I didn't know Klingons could cringe.
It is good. But anyway, how Geordi plays into this episode is that he is hooked up. I mean, we've never done this before. To stabilise the patient, we'll hook him up to your brain and you can control his bodily functions.
That seems such an inherently bad idea.
You need to control this man's bodily functions.
How do we know it doesn't work the other way? Well,
I think this man would like to be urinating right now.
But anyway, this is the thing that Beverly brings out of her pocket and never will again.
That will be a way to prank somebody in the 24th century, wouldn't it? To take control of their bodily functions.
Good times all around.
What? Who thought that this would be a good piece of medical equipment? It's just such an inherently bad idea. This man that's about to die, we're going to link his nervous system to yours. You know the incredible stress that would put on anyone's nervous system, where you're going to have that and your normal functions. You're looking a bit breathless, Geordi. Maybe it's because you're supporting someone that's dying.
Beverly says, "I need a volunteer," and Geordi just goes, Me, and it's like, we're going to take out your kidneys, Geordi.
I wasn't aware that we'd stepped into an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, but that is what appears to happen.
Yeah, so that then gives him confidence, which means he can ask out the girl, which is another fun scene, because we have this scene in 10 Forward again, with Worf and Data, and all Data and Geordi want to talk about is work. So I guess the idea is, Geordi's really confident in work, and his work stuff. And talking about this really terrible alien prop that clearly came out of a bric-a-brac shop. Yeah, it's a little blue vase bulb thing. Lovely. And Worf just goes, less work, more synfahol. I like that about Worf.
Can I also just take a moment to say that when they're putting that thing on Geordie's forehead and whatnot, that seemed a lot of effort to go to create that set for such a short scene. Because, it's better than some of the studio sets we've seen that are meant to be an on-location but for an alien world. It's better done, certainly than Skin of Evil or something like that. But, yeah, it just feels an unnecessary amount of effort.
think the show has more money to play around with at this point, certainly than season 1, when they were basically just paying for all of the elaborate sets that they'd already built and needed to be standing.
Well, that's what happened when you don't spunk your money on a horse.
I also think they're a lot better at what they do, and they can do more with lighting and matte paintings and props. It's all kind of there. It's a skilled team at this point.
There is actually, early on in the episode as well, a lot of use of dark on board the Enterprise. When Beverly's dealing with the patient, they do film in a slightly different way to normal, and the lighting is much lower than it normally is as well.
Can't say I noticed, but that's nice.
Well, that's what happens when you have to rewatch it twice just to follow what happened, because you've switched off that much.
I didn't notice the lighting so much as I noticed that John Doe had a small sheath covering his package.
That's the Blu-ray for you, isn't it? The key scene in the episode, isn't it? Where John has been in sick bay forever, and then Cole Meany comes in, injures himself kayaking again. What is that Chief O'Brien like with his kayaking?
Always talking about the kayaking. Always talking about it.
Well, it is something that will be revisited many times in Deep Space Nine.
Yes, that becomes his character trait. The cello gets thrown away. Oh, the cello no more. Kayaking is his thing.
It's why everyone's so quick to leave the transporter room, because if they stay around there, he just starts talking about it. Good to have you back, Captain. And did I ever tell you about when I went kayaking? Yes.
By the way, we're not joking. This does come up in Deep Space Nine.
And I think that's a continuity error, because he throws his shoulder again, but as far as I can tell, his shoulder should have been reinstated to its original healthy pre-dislocation state in this episode. Otherwise, this alien is a fraud. It is in some ways, it's this mystery episode. Who is this person? Who is this alien? But given you kind of have an infinite number of alien races that could have an infinite number of powers, I suppose it's quite hard to invest in that mystery, isn't it? Because they could be anything, and it wouldn't be surprising if they're anything.
Well, I mean, it kind of was only ever going to go two ways. Because we've had episodes not massively dissimilar in some senses, and it was going to go one of two ways. It was either going to be, it turns out he's a mass murderer, or it turns out that you think he's a mass murderer, but he's actually not. He's actually a really nice guy. And I just went with the latter.
Yeah, you're right. It is only going to go a couple of ways, and then when he displays that power and heals Chief O'Brien, you think, oh, so he's sort of a space Jesus then.
Or has he given him cancer? You know, it could still go either way at that point.
You're supposed to sympathise with him, aren't you? Despite his actions, because Beverly essentially falls in love with him, and you have this scene with Wesley grilling his mother about her romantic intentions.
That is such a weird scene.
That was very strange.
It's so uncomfortable.
It's just odd. Because when that scene first came on, I thought, oh, she's having one of her chats with Captain Picard and updating him on the progress. And then it sort of cuts across and it's Wesley.
I can't decide if it feels like it's verging too close on a romantic scene or if it's verging too close on a Norman Bates scene. But either way, it's not right.
She's talking to him about who she's attracted to. That's not a mother and son conversation.
Well, if your son is Norman Bates, then actually, yes, it would be.
I guess it feels like it's trying to give him something to do. Because, well, he essentially does nothing. And in some ways, it also feels like this should be a Beverly episode. But again, she doesn't have anything to do other than go, well, you've healed pretty quickly, haven't you? I've done nothing to help you. I'm going to be doctor-y. And then him going, Beverly, you're wonderful. You're such a great doctor. And it's like, oh.
Oh, that was that the way she kind of moves her head forward to follow his hand as he pulls it away, that was strange.
It's a whole lot of, again, it's telling and not showing, isn't it? Beverly's been great, and I would like Dr. Crusher to have a meaningful episode, because she doesn't really get those, and she doesn't even have a lot to do, even in an episode which is kind of her episode.
Well, I think if it was going to be more structured towards her, you probably would have had a reversal of outcomes. So we sort of said about, there's two ways it can go. Either he's a mass murderer or he's not. If you were to go down that other route and say he is a mass murderer, but he's lost his memory as a result of what they've done, then you start to get into that sort of more cerebral area. And can you judge a man for crimes that he is completely unaware of because you've reset him? And then that's where you would bring in her interest with him. But because we've gone the other way in the plot entirely, there is no room for that plot element continuing.
It is that thing that they are still doing where they're giving an episode to the female cast member, and of course she must be in love with somebody. If you're going to give an episode to one of the female cast, why can't they do something other than be romantically involved with the guest of the week?
Well, last week they were kidnapped and forcibly stripped, so, be careful what you wish for, I suppose.
But even then, that was kind of along the lines of, Luxana Troy in a relationship with Damon Tock.
Yeah, kinda.
And, I defend that element of the episode with them being stripped because it's clearly signposted as the bad guy is forcing them to do that. That's clearly the wrong thing. But it just seems to me like they're still failing to give the women of the show something meaningful to do.
But I think in this episode you can say they're failing to give everyone something meaningful to do. That Geordie plot, where essentially he gets hooked up to the evolving alien's brain and he gains a bit of confidence. And that's it. He's gained a little bit of confidence. There's no deepening of that. There's no taking that to the next level. There's no real science fiction exploration of that. It just goes, well, thanks for my confidence. I've got a girlfriend now. And what's the point in any of that? What does that give you? It doesn't really add anything other than, again, some comedy scenes with Geordie and Worf.
You would have thought that in a more competent episode, that would have fed into the resolution. Geordie would have came in and would have been able to save the day using his mental link with John Doe.
Yeah, or even he gains the insight in order to gain the access from the machine in order to find out where his homeworld is. Rather than just going, maybe we're thinking about this the wrong way. And maybe that is what happens. Maybe that's how he gets the inspiration, because he's got better knowledge about it.
Or imagine if we'd gone in that opposite direction again, so that he's forgotten all of his past crimes, but Geordie's painfully aware of them. Wouldn't that be an interesting moral quandary to explore?
I mean, we're now writing another episode again.
Well, it's you know what? It's another episode. We've had a few episodes where they've been slightly beholden to the guest star, or even not necessarily the star, but just the character that they're playing, which can be fine. We've seen ones recently where it's okay. You're dealing with an idea of a collector, but there's not enough to this to make it support that.
He's got a lot of charisma. He can support the episode. Look at all of his charisma.
But let him demonstrate some then.
I think the thing is as well, there's such a lack of urgency in the episode where it's, well, we've found your home planet, and it's like, oh, I don't want to go there. Well, we're not going for another 3 weeks. What we're doing is we're going to really slowly chart this star system. I can run off to the Klingon homeworld when my fancy takes me, but right now when we're, seeking new life and new civilizations, we're going to leave that a while we just map this rock over here.
Is it sad that when he mentioned that it was going to take 3 weeks, I instantly thought, is that going to mean that the start date he mentions in the episode is going to be slightly out when compared with next week's, which should tick over to the next number for the next season? That was my one thought when he said that.
Yeah, I think that maybe sums up the episode quite well then. They inject the drama at the end, I suppose. Is he good? Is he bad? When he tries to steal the shuttle, he's got that fight or flight instinct. He's trying to escape, and then he kills Worf by accident. And then brings him back instantly. A lot of drama there for the 4 seconds that Worf was dead.
That's the thing though, isn't it? The moments of drama are fine, but they're really fleeting. And when it does develop into an interesting plot at the end, the idea of the species evolving, it doesn't explore it. It doesn't, try and deal with what the ramifications of that are. It's there and then it finishes. It comes in so late.
Yeah, and that's that thing about the idea not being explored, because you're holding off from showing us what the idea is for such a long time. When the Zalconians arrive, and they're basically so arch, we are space Nazis, travelling at warp 9.72. So you've got this advanced alien race, but again, what do we find out about them? That they want this guy for crimes against society. The language seems very fascistic. It seems like we don't trust these guys. The man on the Enterprise who is nice and wears a white bodysuit is the one we trust. They're trying to set up that Star Trek dilemma. Do we interfere or do we not interfere? Do we give him back or do we not? But again, there's no time for that dilemma, really, to be explored.
Yeah, if you'd introduced it earlier and then had the episode being them debating that point whilst slowly coming to realizations, that would be a different case. But it just jumps to him turning into the glowing Mr. Burns from that episode of The Simpsons with "I bring you love, I bring you love," and it's just okay, we've gone here. And I wonder what they'll do with that now that they've gone. Oh, it's finished.
I liked that glowing effect. I thought that worked quite well. I thought that worked quite well.
It's absolutely fine. But
is it?
Yeah.
I think maybe then. It just seems to me now it's just so much. Oh, it's just a guy in an all over cat suit. It's a guy in a morph suit and they've made him glow yellow.
I hasten to add that my description was not, it's great. My description was, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, it's better than him turning, as he does right at the end, into some weird kind of just spatial anomaly.
Well, in Stargate, when they ascend, they become sort of squid-like creatures. So in some ways, it's better than that too. It's perfectly fine.
I do get some amusement from how he sort of gradually works up to it, though, that he keeps having these spells where he suddenly gets overtaken by the gold light. Because when he does, apart from one occasion where he just throws himself backwards in a hilarious manner, the rest of the time he sort of hunches over as if he's suddenly got a stomach upset or he's just orgasmed. It's really weird to watch. It's that Fast Show sketch. And I'll just get that, but I'm sorry, I've come. It's bizarre choices.
Do you guys know what happened when everybody stopped breathing?
Did the puppies also start choking?
Was that a weapon that was used by the Zalconians?
No, it was their mind powers.
Alright, so they've got mind powers.
That's the insinuation, isn't it? He kind of seems to be using his mind.
You mean the guy that reminds me of Chris Morris on the other ship?
Yeah, he seems to be using his mind. He has mind powers.
Well, I'm glad they set that one up well.
Yeah, I didn't get that at all. I was just like, I don't really know why this has happened.
This other guy has, like, healing powers, and he turns into this weird alien thing made of gas or something.
You racist.
So I think it's quite in keeping with that the other people would have mind powers.
Yeah, but are they not against all that sort of thing?
Only if it turns them into a weird gas thing.
I mean, because
Yeah, they just don't like golden men.
I just feel like the logic's off there. That he's basically doing the Darth Vader trick, because he's just like, it is lies that you can heal people, and it's like, well, if you can hurt people, how big a leap is that?
This is what Memory Alpha has to say in their rundown of the episode for that section where the Zalconians make everybody choke. Declaring that John has corrupted the Enterprise's crew as well, soon add motions to his bridge crew, and the Zalconian ship creates some kind of effect that causes every member of the crew to suffocate. So, it might be that Memory Alpha is guessing there as well. I don't know.
I think the fact that they describe it as some kind of effect tells you that it's not massively well written.
I mean, all he had to say was activate the anti-oxygen ray, or
Yes, that exact line.
I could be a writer on Star Trek, you know.
Well, depending on how Discovery goes, you may well get your chance.
Well, you remember that earlier episode from this season where it just took one look from Picard and they knew exactly what to do on the bridge. So it's the same thing with the Zalconian crew.
That's fine, but we actually know the Enterprise crew.
Do you want a spin-off with the Zalconian crew so we can learn about their anti-oxygen abilities?
All we want is for them to set stuff up properly, and so we know what's happening. That's the minimum I ask for.
Yeah, Chekhov's gun is just a smoking hole in someone's head, and no gun to be seen.
But anyway, then at the end, he turns into a glowing ball of light and leaves to go and help other people evolve. And you think, there's definitely something in this idea that could have been an interesting episode, isn't there?
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm ramped for the finale. I mean, you know, we obviously do other stuff about a comedy show, and it's often said about comedies that you hide your worst episode in the 5th slot because people have either dropped off of watching or they'll ignore a bad episode because of the big finale. And this kind of feels like it's fitting into that mould. Oh, just toss it into that slot, no one's going to care. It's not bad, it's just so perfunctory.
And again, you would say, what's the parallel? What's the subtext of this episode? And I can't really come up with one. It's sort of in the end, it's that it's okay to be different. And I think, okay, I didn't need an episode to tell me that.
There seems to be some sort of subtext about race, but it's so badly handled that the message is really mixed.
Anyway, let's see if we can scrape the bottom of this barrel in quick fire.
Quick fire.
So Geordi's girlfriend, did you know that's the same woman as appeared as his date in Booby Trap, who rejected him outright and is now apparently pining for him?
No.
I didn't realise that either. Recurring character alert. She seems quite out of character now.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
That's very true. Which is why we leave such a big gap between releases of this podcast.
Maybe she had some kind of accident, some major head injury, and this is just how she is now. A lot of things can happen off screen. That is my headcanon. She has had a horrific injury to her head, and now she likes Geordie.
Just since you raised that point, I picked up the Nitpicker's Guide, as I'm wanting to do, God knows why, and they address that point as well, as you may well expect that they would. They use slightly different language to you. They say the conversation makes it sound like they've never met. In fact, LaForge had already taken out the little tart at least once. What?
Oh, dear me.
Jeez.
Oh. I think we need to burn the Nitpicker's Guide now.
Jesus. I mean, halfway through, this book took a really nasty turn. Phil Farrand. I hope you're ashamed of yourself. Good Lord.
I mean, we can often say different times, but you think, not that different. Not really that different.
The front of the book describes it as 6 seasons of bloopers, flubs, technical screw-ups, and plot discrepancies for discriminating fans of Star Trek The Next Generation. Well, he's certainly right on the discriminating part, it seems. What a prick. Is that one of the things that he classes on the back as the bullet point fun facts?
Do you know this was originally conceived as a love story for Beverly Crusher before the script was retooled? Who could have guessed?
A female character being given a love interest in their episode where they're meant to be driving the plot? Who could have ever imagined that?
Michael Pillar commented, "We wanted to do a show where we get to see 24th century medicine up close and personal. Well, you succeeded in that. Beverly Crusher uses all her skills to save an alien, reconstructing him and putting him back together, and sort of falling in love with him. It's a very spiritual kind of show." I don't feel that's a description of the episode that we saw, though. TNG film editor Tom Benko, who was brought on by Corey Allen during the pilot, got a chance to direct an episode, and what a fine job he did. I mean, it is a fine job. It's fine. It's basically fine, except for that bit with the not breathing. But well done. Film editors can direct, as Star Trek Nemesis proved. So that's us nearly at the end. Thanks once again for listening. We'll be back again, where we'll be talking about the best of both worlds. I hope you'll join us for that. But for now, goodbye.
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 So, do you think, Alex, now you've reached all but the ends of season 3, that it's lived up to the idea of this is where Next Generation becomes good, as we were told so much when we were doing season 1 and 2?
The highs have been higher, the lows haven't been as low, but the middling has continued. There's certainly been a fair amount of padding around some obviously great episodes like Yesterday's Enterprise. But then, to balance that, you've got ones like this, which, to be brutally honest, I'm not going to remember this time next week, let alone once we start going through other episodes.
No.
Well, don't worry, because season 4 is when it starts to get really good.
Yeah, season 4's when it gets good, Alex.
Oh, how I've been burnt before.